We all know contracts, right? They're all about strict rules, fine print, but what happens when a rule gets broken, but it's, well, not quite a deal breaker? That's what we're diving into today. There's this super flexible legal idea that judges use to make things fair when a contract goes sideways. So let's get into it.
Okay, so picture this. You've signed a huge contract, and then the other side messes up. They breach the deal. What's the first thing you're going to ask? It's probably, is this whole thing off? Can I just walk away? Or are you stuck with suing for damages as your only option? Well, as we're about to find out, the answer is complicated.
For the longest time, contract law was super black and white about this. I mean, every single promise in a contract, what lawyers call a term, had to fit into one of just two boxes. It was either a condition or it was a warranty.
No in between.
And the difference? It was all about the consequences. A condition is something that goes right to the heart of the deal. It's so vital that if it's broken, you can just tear up the whole contract. Think of it like the engine in a car. If that's broken, the whole deal's off. But a warranty, that's a less critical promise. You know, like the car radio doesn't work. You can't just return the car for that, right? You can only get some cash or damages to get the radio fixed.
Seems simple enough, right? But you know, the real world is never that simple. It's messy. And lawyers and judges, they figured this out pretty quickly. They realized that not every promise you make in a contract fits neatly into one of those two boxes. And that, well, that created this big, murky gray area.
And that leads us to the million-dollar question. What do you do with a term that could be broken in a really big way or in a really tiny way? If you call it a condition right from the start, that could be way too harsh for just a minor slip-up. But if you call it a warranty, that might be totally useless if the failure is catastrophic. The old system, it was starting to crack.
So to fix this, the courts came up with this really clever, flexible solution. It's kind of a wait-and-see approach, and it's all built around this new idea, the innominate term.
Okay, so here's the big idea. An innominate term doesn't come with a preset remedy. In fact, the word innominate literally just means unnamed. So instead of just looking at the rule that got broken, the court hits pause. It waits to see the actual effect of the breach. They ask, okay, how bad was this really? Did it completely wreck the whole point of the contract? The consequence, what actually happened, is what decides the remedy. Pretty smart, huh?
So let's walk through how this actually works in practice. Step 1, somebody breaks the term. Simple enough. Step 2, instead of just ticking a box, the court does a deep dive. It looks at the real-world impact on the person who got wronged. And only after weighing all that does the court decide, all right, was this serious enough to be treated like a broken condition, letting you walk away? Or was it more like a broken warranty where you just get damages? Now, to really see this thing in action, we have to talk about the case that literally invented it. The whole idea of the innominate term came out of this huge, famous dispute from 1962. It's a story about a ship, a long-term contract, and, yeah, a whole lot of problems. The setup is pretty simple. A company needed a cargo ship, so they chartered one. Basically, they rented it for 2 years. Seemed like a totally standard business deal.
And buried in that contract was this one really important term. It's a super standard promise in shipping law called a seaworthiness clause. All it really means is that the owners promised the ship was in good shape and ready to do its job.
Yeah, about that promise. The reality? It was a disaster. The ship was in terrible condition, the crew was incompetent. This wasn't just a small problem. It was a complete and total failure to deliver what they promised. So, how bad are we talking? Get this. Out of a 2-year contract, that's 24 months, the ship was out of commission for repairs for 18 months. 18! Can you imagine? The company was paying all this money for a ship they couldn't even use for most of the contract.
So naturally, this ended up in court with a huge question. The company renting the ship argued that the seaworthiness promise had to be a condition. I mean, with that massive delay, they just wanted out. They wanted to terminate the whole contract. But the court had to decide, was this breach, as awful as it was, so bad that it justified killing the entire 2-year deal? And this is where the court had its light bulb moment. The judges basically said, you know what? This old system is just too rigid. They realized that some promises in a contract are just too complex. You can't just slap a label on them, condition or warranty, before you even know what's happened.
So, for the first time ever, the court declared a term, this seaworthiness clause, to be an innominate term. Then they did what this new rule required. They looked at the consequences. And then came the shocker.
The court decided that even with an 18-month delay, the breach still wasn't serious enough to terminate the contract. The company could sue for a ton of money in damages for all that lost time, for sure, but they couldn't just walk away.
And just like that, the Hong Kong fur case changed contract law forever. It gave judges this amazing new flexible tool. But it also kicked off this big debate that's still going on today. What's more important, flexibility or certainty? So you've really got two competing ideas here. On one hand, you have conditions and warranties. They give you certainty. Everybody knows exactly what happens if a rule is broken, right from the start. On the other hand, you have intimate terms. They give you flexibility. The result is custom fit to the actual damage done, which hopefully leads to a fairer outcome.
When you boil it all down, the innominate term is really a powerful tool for justice. It stops someone from using a tiny, technical mistake to escape a contract they just don't like anymore. But it also makes sure there's an escape hatch if the breach is a total catastrophe. It's really all about making the punishment fit the crime, based on what actually happened.
And that leaves us with one final question for you. Think about the agreements you make in your own life, whether it's at work or personally. What do you value more? The absolute certainty of knowing all the rules up front, or the flexibility of getting a fair outcome that's decided after the fact? It's that exact tension that this whole idea of the innominate term tries so beautifully to solve.